The Striga is one of the most memorable but tragic creatures that Geralt of Rivia has to face. But do you know the folktale roots and the folklore connections behind it? Well, stick around to know more. Hey everyone, welcome to Care Fiction. I'm your host Subhankar. Today, we are going deep in the Witcher lore to learn more about the Striga and most importantly, what inspired the famous fight scene. Heads up, because there are spoilers ahead, and also note that I am speaking for both the books and the TV series, although there are a few minor differences. The Striga is a human woman transformed into a monster by a curse. Geralt has his share of fighting cursed monsters, all of whom have an appalling story behind the curse and the hatred. But the tale of the Striga and the fight with Geralt is notable because this story introduced the Witcher for the first time. That's right. Titled The Witcher, it is a short story written by Andrzej Sapkowski, which was first published in the Fantastica magazine and then in the book Wiedźmin. Fantastica is a Polish speculative fiction monthly magazine. Founded in 1982, it featured stories by Philip K. Dick, J.R.R. Tolkien, Anthony Burgess, and many other acclaimed writers. After the book turned obsolete, the story was republished in The Last Wish, which was the first book in Sapkowski's The Witcher series chronologically. That was a good dose of fun facts. Let me give a quick walkthrough of the Striga tale from the Witcher series. Princess Ada, also known as Ada the White, was the daughter of King Foltest of Temeria. Out of hatred for Foltest and his sister's relationship, the princess was cursed before her birth. Her mother did not survive the birth, and when Ada was born as a monstrous Striga, she and her mother were laid to rest in a single tomb. It is not certain who put the curse. Most likely it was Ostrid, who also loved Ada's mother, or it could have been the king's mother as well, Santia. And not much is known about the curse that transforms females into Striga. But as per Ostrid's journal, found in the first Witcher video game, he mentions that a witch had told him to prepare some ingredients and utter some words thrice, while sometimes pure hatred could also put the curse. Regardless, for 7 years, Princess Ada grew inside the sarcophagus to emerge out as a predator devoid of consciousness and started killing the residents. The way Geralt happened to know about these events differ in the books and the TV series. But finally, when he met King Foltest, the king asked Geralt not to harm the monster, for a maze had told him a way to lift the curse. In order to lift the curse, someone must prevent the Striga from returning to her coffin by the third crowing of the rooster. Back in the old palace, when Geralt learns Ostrid's true nature, he lured the Striga by using him as a bait, and after an intense fight, the Witcher was able to lift the curse off of the princess. But what happens after the curse is lifted? Unfortunately, there is a chance that the person may not fully recover, and it is more likely in Ada's case as the curse was given before birth. Thus, in order to prevent from the relapse, the cured ones had to wear sapphire amulets and participate in rituals. But this history of the Striga goes back much further than that, precisely to 1847 in a poetic novel called Laszlo, written by Roman Zmarsky. This is an equally twisted Polish folktale from which Sapkowski was inspired and described his story of Geralt and Striga as a satire of the classic fairy tale. So let us look into this folktale, shall we? The original folk tale tells the story of Marcin, a brave and a pious young orphan who bravely rescued a helpless old man being tormented by a villain on the road. Then, accompanied by the old man, he wanders into a local inn and overhears that the king is offering a sizable reward to anyone who can save the enchanted princess in the church. But out of fear of the horrors in the church, no one was willing to take the task. The innkeep then spilled the story to Marcin. The princess was born out of incestuous relationship. She had a wide mouth full of sharp fangs and claws on her hands and feet, and the monster was named Striga. After the death of her mother, she blames her father for the curse, and she tells him that he must bury her in a full-sized coffin in the royal crypt under the church, and that there must be a living man roaming the church every night after she is buried. But she died later, and after a few weeks, the king realized that none of his guards were returning from the church, Helpless, the king started to send criminals as bait to the church in order to keep his daughter's wishes. Then finally Marcin meets the king and heads out to the church. Marcin, like many other folk heroes, has to follow the rule of three to defeat the Striga. On the first night, Marcin hides in a pile of bones and manages to escape the Striga's fury. On the second night, he climbs up into the church choir loft and draws the sign of the cross on the door to keep the Striga from following. On the third night, he creeps into the coffin, draws a cross on the lid in chalk, and then hides inside, while the Striga desperately tries to get back into her tomb. After the clock strikes 2, Marcin opens the lid to find a beautiful girl lying in malaise, and thus we get a folktale ending. Marcin marries a beautiful princess and eventually becomes the king. As a nice callback to the folktale, Geralt mentions that it may indeed take him 3 nights to break the curse. Well, of course, the story in the Witcher series plays out almost the same as that of the Polish folktale. But the monster is also heavily influenced by Eastern European folklore, most notably from Striga. The pronunciation is way off. From the Polish folklore. They are usually female demon, similar to vampire. In rare cases, they can also be male. Popular folk beliefs constitute various imaginings of the Striga. For instance, people who were born with 2 hearts and 2 souls and 2 sets of teeth were believed to be Strigi. It is also believed that during epidemics, people who were getting buried alive and those who managed to get out of their graves, often weak, ill, and with mutilated hands, were said to be Strigi by others. Then we have the Strigoi from Romanian mythology, who are troubled spirits that are said to have risen from the grave. They are attributed with the abilities to transform into an animal, become invisible, and to gain vitality from the blood of their victims. Sounds familiar? Well, that is because the Strigoi has long been thought to be one of the main inspirations for Bram Stoker's Dracula. Turning to Albanian mythology, Striga is a vampiric witch that sucks the blood of infants at night while they sleep and then turns into a flying insect. You may also notice in the TV series that one of the victims refers the Striga as the Vukodlak, which is primarily from the Bulgarian folklore meaning werewolf. The Striga is an amalgamation of these folk tales and mythological creatures and is one hell of a monster. Hope you have learned some more stuff about the lore of the monsters. And with that, it's time for me to sign off. And you know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe. See you soon.